Bonsoir, Crowder. Bonsoir, Crowder. Today I'll be making a video about you and how you're a cringe. You're a cringe, boy.
Oh, shit. Give me that milk. Oh, give me that milk. Won't you cut?
Steven Crowder is perhaps the most famous conservative YouTuber. I remember watching him in like late middle school and early high school, owning the libtards, okay? And even back then, he was absolutely killing it. He does have a show called Louder with Crowder, but the real thing that he was really known for was Change My Mind. It was a series where he would set up a table at a college campus and debate whoever walked up to him.
So if you were to intentionally misgender a trans woman, that could put her at risk of murder. You understand that? Because people think because you're trans.
I hate to ruin your like polite discourse, but you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting that in display for the whole world.
And it was a pretty interesting idea for a series, and it also became a huge meme. Like, for years, change my mind with whatever statement you want, you know, pineapple on pizza is actually good. No, it's fucking not. Stop lying to yourself, okay? Stuff like that was in these memes, and it was being plastered across the internet. I will say, as far as debate content, it wasn't the most intellectually stimulating or interesting thing in the world, because realistically, this is a 30-year-old guy debating college kids who are totally unprepared for a debate. I've never seen Crowder actually debate someone where it was like a big challenge for him, because I mean, that would be a challenge, right? That would be hard, and he would probably lose, to be honest. He's not a very good debater, I don't think. He's very good at like snappy little talking points. He's not really a good debate guy on his feet, okay? He would rather just debate dumb college students, which in fairness makes for some pretty entertaining stuff.
Don't touch me, bro.
Well, I'm not going to touch you, but you don't.
I know witchcraft, fool.
I understand.
I'm going to curse you and your firstborn son. You touch me, bro.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't want that to happen to my firstborn son, but you know, if you have to do what you have to do. Just leave the women alone and go on your merry way.
No, I can do what I want.
No, you
This
can't.
is America.
Actually, you can't. That's assault.
I didn't touch the lady.
Okay, good. So let's keep it that way. But she's uncomfortable.
No.
You're being pretty violent.
No. I'm out here doing the work of Jesus Christ, trying to defend these goddamn men out here for these sorry-ass females out here.
Jesus Christ called a lot of women gold-digging suckers, did he? I didn't really read about that, and I didn't read about that in Mark.
Come on, you want to read the Bible? I got the Bible with me.
Go ahead and read your Bible, then do your witchcraft.
And his show, Louder with Crowder, was also very successful. It's basically a podcast where he would talk about current events and had various guests and personalities on. He also had his own crew of a few people, one of which was not gay Jared. This guy actually went undercover with Antifa at one point for a video he did, and was later interviewed by Ben Shapiro about it. He also went on Rogan to talk about it with Steven, and that was a huge episode when it came out.
You went undercover with Antifa, and that one was disturbing to me because first of all, you look like you slide right in like a glove, buddy. Like
I was almost matching the guy when I got there. Guy, gal, we don't know. And I thought our costume wardrobe lady had actually just stolen his clothes because it was almost identical to what he was wearing.
Isn't it funny, though, that when you're a slender man, like people assume immediately you're left wing?
Oh, yeah. I can get away with so much crap.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Well, like, what is it about slender people? There's something there, right? Like, what is it about slender people that are almost always left wing?
Weakness.
Whoa. You think so?
Sorry.
Jared, first of all, before we start, I think that we have a lot of people who have no clue why Crowder calls you not gay. I think they have an inkling, but where did that nickname come from in the first place?
You know, I wish I could dive into the specifics of that. I believe if you go back to episode like 39, there's some clarification that can happen. But just, you know, on principle and legality and just, you know, it's a character thing. I've you know.
Okay, magician never reveals his weird secrets.
Exactly.
He had another co-host named Dave Landau. He also has a website with his own articles. He has his own subscription service called Mug Club with all these different shows like The Alex Jones Show 2.0. Brian Callen from The Fighter and the Kid has a show there. The Hodge twins. The dude basically created his own little media empire, which at one point even surpassed the Young Turks as the most subscribed to news channel on YouTube. And back in the day, he even charged through several controversies. One of these controversies you guys probably forget involved Carlos Maza, or Gay Wonk, and I'm not being an asshole here, okay? That's just his Twitter username before you call me homophobic or hobophobic, okay? That's his @ on Twitter. It's not my fault. Carlos is a journalist who used to work for VODS, where he created videos for the business and got a lot of traction there. Well, he and Crowder had a big beef back in the day when they really hated each other, which led Crowder to make a lot of comments about him on his show. A lot of pretty raunchy jokes, I would say.
It's ridiculous. It's bonkers. You're being given a free pass as a crappy writer because you're gay.
That center line on his little queer graph there. What is
well, now the graph is queer?
Violence, filth,
Okay, so the little queer could eat his chips all nonchalantly. It's code for Mr. Queer eating chips on the Vox channel. Chip, 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 but you can eat just one, like dicks. This is what Mr. Gay Vox wants to do. Mr. Lispy Queer from Vox. What were you holding, Gay Latino from Vox? Even his hand movement in fast motion is gay. Now we're here with the short-haired angry lesbian on Skype. From cable news. Ching, two gay guys sitting there eating a banana. We get the symbolism there. The truth is hiding in a closet 2 weeks later, probably along to his next Pride Parade outfit. This guy, token Vox gay atheist sprite with surprisingly flaccid chest considering how thin he is. It's just very bizarre to me.
Carlos saw these, obviously, and didn't like it very much because he is gay. So he decided to cause a shitstorm online to try and punish Crowder. I believe he called for him to be banned from YouTube in 2019, actually. Since I started working for Vox, Steven Crowder has been making video after video debunking strike-through. Every single video has included repeated overt attacks on my sexual orientation and ethnicity. That being said, I'm not mad at Crowder. There will always be monsters in the world. I'm pissed at YouTube, which claims to support its LGBT creators and has explicit policies against harassment and bullying. And he then cites the YouTube terms of service, claiming that Crowder was breaking the rules. And it seems like a lot of people also think that he did break the rules, but upon taking a look, I honestly don't think he was at the time. According to the community guidelines, the following is not allowed: content that is deliberately posted in order to humiliate someone, content that makes hurtful and negative personal comments and videos about another person. Okay, so actually he was kind of breaking community guidelines. New argument: I don't care about the community guidelines because they're fake and cringe, and you should be able to insult whoever you want on YouTube. So Mazza makes this big call out, and YouTube is now put in a tough position. While they don't want to ban one of the largest conservative news channels out there, at the same time, this public pressure could lead to another ad boycott. This was just a short time after the adpocalypse, which caused some major issues for all of YouTube, and I think Carlos knew this at the time and was using that to his advantage.
What a fucking nick.
So what YouTube did was they demonetized the channel so Crowder could not make money from ad revenue anymore. Undoubtedly, a big blow to his business. But the boomers watching his show have money to support the shows they like, and they came together to financially support him through the Mug Club and sponsorships. And eventually, he got monetization on his channel back. At the time, Vice even wrote an article saying that Crowder won the controversy. In an interview Monday night at the Code Conference in Arizona, YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki apologized to the LGBTQ community for belatedly taking action against Crowder's channel, which repeatedly targeted Vox's Carlos Mazza with racist and homophobic insults. But she stood by her company's decision to allow Crowder to remain on the platform, just without a cut of YouTube's ad sales around the conservative comedian's videos. If we took down that content, there would be so much other content that we would need to take down, Wojcicki said. What YouTube intended as a slap on Crowder's wrist has instead turned the video creator into a martyr standing against big tech overreach, and it could even help him solidify a more durable business model that limits the pain YouTube can inflict for breaking its rules in the future outside of an outright ban. We're not really beholden to the YouTube advertiser, Crowder said in the show Wednesday. And he's right, he's not really beholden to the YouTube advertiser because, as a lot of you guys know, a lot of these big conservative outlets like the Daily Wire, they do make money from YouTube ad revenue, but they also have a ton of sponsorships like Dollar Shave Club and Raycon, stuff like that. Companies that sponsor YouTubers also sponsor these big conservative outlets, and whereas someone like me is marketing to young people who have less income to spend on random shit, boomers have a lot of money to spend on random shit, and they watch conservative media like this. So they're going to want to get involved in supporting their favorite content creator, and what better way to do that than by paying them? As this article says, creators like Crowder have built deep relationships with their audiences through content that drives the user engagement tech platforms craze. Creators then convert those relationships into cash in a variety of ways that don't always rely on platform approval: t-shirts, sponsored content, memberships, and more. And you know what? As this article points out, Crowder basically won in the end because that week the channel got 86,000 new subs, which was an increase from the 15,000 subs he got the prior week. All these conservative dudes like Ben Shapiro came out to defend him, as well as even actual politicians like Ted Cruz, who criticized big tech. They criticized YouTube for demonetizing him. The dude made it through. But if you look up Steven Crowder today, you will not find a lot of positive videos defending him. Instead, what you will find is an onslaught of videos calling him out, hating on him, shitting all over him. And this has been a trend for about a year now, to the point where even his own peers have taken to eating from his corpse. Candace Owens called him out. Ben Shapiro called him out. Dave Landau and Not Gay Jared have also called him out. These are his former employees, keep in mind. His own wife has been critical of him. All of his former collaborators, peers, and his partner hate him. So what happened to Steven Crowder? Well, a lot of this begins in January of 2023. Steven made a video calling out the Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro's media company, calling them everything wrong with modern conservatism. He made this 30-minute long video, a lot of which didn't have a lot of substance, but he was basically claiming that conservatives in the conservative media are in bed with big tech and are locking personalities into exploitative business deals that take away from the conservative movement.
Before you start trying to do some Sherlock Holmes work, there are far more people beneath the tip of the iceberg than you know about who are trying to get into this space. There are more than you would probably assume. So I went into free agency. I looked over the offers, and I saw the clause come out. And I don't just mean unreasonable demands for control, but what I would argue are immoral terms that actually punish conservative content creators on behalf of big tech. And that's something that I just couldn't unsee. And I want to let you know, it's not the exception. It's the rule. Kids out there coming up. We need to build a bench here in this movement. It's almost impossible. Don't sign these contracts. I now know what you are signing out there. I have the luxury of not having to. I don't have to be here. I don't have to say this. Please, don't sign this. Certainly not without professional legal counsel representation.
Here he's basically saying that someone was trying to lock him into a contract where he cannot be edgy, he can't be real, can't express his actual opinions. Instead, he has to cower to what this contract says and what big tech wants. And he claimed this company, Daily Wire, also did this to other people. He showed this contract, which he claimed showed they were going to be stealing all of his social media profiles and basically own his name, which he doesn't want, I guess.
Do not sign something that includes, let me go through this. Effectively, full ownership of all your social media platforms, channels, in perpetuity, the rights to your content name, image, likeness, even the ones that you've built. Don't sign contracts out there that include multi-million-dollar penalties for different... Let me read you an example of what I mean. And this would be if it was me. If a creator fails to deliver a monthly content, in any month or any of the quarterly content in the corner, including any and all ad reads. And by the way, all these contracts came with 3, 4, 5 ad reads per show, which would fundamentally change what this show is. Got to get those dollar bills. If I failed to do that, it would be a $250,000 reduction in fee per quarter. If, let's say, we did do everything per quarter, but annually maybe missed something, like let's say we went and did a Change My Mind instead of a daily show, which of course requires a lot more work. There'd be a separate $1 million penalty for that if you miss a single piece of content. And the amount of content required is not in line with, frankly, it's worse than Disney, it's worse than ABC, it's worse than NBC, it's worse than CBS. This is ownership of you and everything that you do. But here's, just to drive it home, don't sign something that has another $100,000 daily penalty if it's not signed off on beforehand.
Now, this is kind of vague and hard to follow, but he's basically saying, big picture, Daily Wire are scumbags who only care about money and try to lock him into this shitty contract. Well, the Daily Wire ended up responding with a video that pretty succinctly debunked what Steven had claimed. Their video was double the length of Steven's video, and unlike his, which cherry-picked a few, little comments or whatever from that contract, they actually went through the entire thing. And as it turns out, this offer he got was not for okay, let me ask you guys a question. Hopefully some of you in the audience don't know what I'm talking about and haven't seen this drama yet. How much money do you think that they offered him for a 4-year contract, okay? Are you thinking, conservative media has a lot of money, like 5 million, 10 million. Obviously that's a lot, but still, that seems insane, right? Well, as it turns out, this offer was for $50 million over the course of 4 years. And there was also another $25 million they were going to pay him for another 2 years if the contract worked out and they both liked it and wanted to re-sign, which meant that he would get $75 million for a 6-year contract. Crowder specifically called this contract a slave labor contract, by the way.
If there are enough of you out there, I will transition Mug Club into a full-scale network with independent content creators who don't want to be locked into slave contracts. Look, I understand that business relationships sometimes fall through. People don't see eye to eye. I get that. But there is a way to structure these contracts and a network. There's a world in which contracts and a network exists where everyone benefits with some semblance of fairness, transparency. There's no need to be enslaved like this.
$50 million for the initial term, plus $25 million for the renewal term, if extended, paid in monthly installments. Like I say, a pretty big number, but we thought for a talent like Steven, this is probably the minimum number that's going to get us in the door so that we can sit down and talk to him.
slave contract.
The video outlines that they planned for a 4-year time period with a $50 million payout to Crowder, and this would be paid in monthly installments. Pretty big payday. I mean, a lot of people would literally kill for that kind of money. In certain communities, actually, across the continental United States, people kill for like $5. So you can imagine, the amount of money going here. There's nothing to scoff at. Very, very, very big payday. They also knew Steven liked to run his own business and production and do it all himself, so they allowed him to have that provision so he can do all of his own production and basically just get paid for it straight up.
Production costs. This is important. We've never made a deal quite like the offer that we put in front of Steven, because Steven, very independent guy. I mean, all of our talent have very independent voices. Obviously, we can't tell them what to say. Candace says what she wants, and Jordan Peterson says what he wants, Ben, Michael. But Steven has always built in this protection for himself that he wants to actually produce his content. He doesn't want, most of our guys, they come to the studio and we turn on the cameras. We point the cameras, we point the lights. Steven likes to do that with his own team to just make doubly sure that no one's interfering with his content, not that we would. And so we anticipated that, and we said, Crowder will bear the burden of production, including all costs associated therewith, on all the content contemplated herein, except on the quarterly and annual content contemplated below. We'll get to that part a little bit later. It's kind of a novel concept. The quality of the production will be as good as or better than is currently existing content. This just, again, Steven's going to produce his own content. It has to be as good as the stuff that Steven's audience has come to expect from him, and that'll come out of the $50 million. So it's not like all of that $50 million goes right in Steven's pocket. He's going to use some of it to pay for producers and studio space and camera equipment and operators and lights, just like we're going to use some of the money that we make to pay for the infrastructure and the technology and the marketing and the legal and all the other parts that go into making a successful business.
They also revealed that yes, they would be buying the content, but Steven can still make it the way he wants. They just want to be able to monetize his stuff and get a serious return on their investment. They wanted 4 1.5-hour shows a week and also offered him 4 weeks of vacation. They only wanted 4 work days out of him, basically. They did want some of the content paywalled, but it's no different from what Steven was doing with The Blaze. You put out the content on YouTube to advertise it to people, and then behind the paywall is where the real money is made.
192 episodes. Obviously, there are 260 work days in a year. Most Americans work 260 days a year minus 10. That's 2 weeks of vacation. So they work about 250 work days a year. And we're telling Steven, you've got to produce 192. So already, even to say 4 weeks of vacation, that is probably above average, but it doesn't really capture the reality of this, which is there are going to be, 60 days basically of the year where Fridays, we call them, where Steven basically doesn't have to produce a show. And you may say, well, that's still a lot. And I know Steven says that's more than even, network TV would ask for. Yeah, these are points that can be negotiated. I still think most people feel like, if you're only working 4 days a week and you get 4 weeks off every year and you can pre-schedule even additional time to be traveling by banking episodes, you would at least say, you may think, well, he needed to negotiate that and get it down to 170 or something. Sure, I thought he would. But it's certainly not unfair to expect someone that is making $50 million over the next 4 years to, work 192 days a year.
It becomes clear pretty quickly through this video that they were not asking for much in terms of content. He was being asked to work 4 days a week. He still had 4 weeks of vacation. He could travel outside of that. He could go wherever he wanted. He could bank content ahead of time, scheduled to post, so he could travel more if he wanted to. They asked him to do some other exclusive content for Daily Wire, which is pretty typical. They're a business. They're trying to make exclusive content for their paywall. They did ask to license his old content, which would then be put behind the paywall. But once again, this is pretty standard stuff for running a business like this.
Item 6, the back catalog. Crowder will license his entire back catalog, including without limitation every past episode of Louder with Crowder, to us during the term. That just means that all the episodes that already exist would also be behind our paywall during the term. At the end of the term, all of that content that we didn't actually pay for would revert to Crowder at the end of the term. But we would have it in the meantime.
Now, the provision that Steven focused on from the contract was in regards to merch rights and social media management. He claimed he would be a puppet for them, controlled by them basically. But Jeremy here of the Daily Wire reveals that this just meant they would be posting his podcast and collecting the revenue from them. They wouldn't own his personal Twitter or Instagram because, that's his social media. They wouldn't be speaking for him. They would, however, have access to the YouTube channel because they're business partners, so they can help post stuff or whatever, or promote things there, right? But it's not like they're going to be taking control of his entire life and just running his business into the fucking ground, right? Which is basically the way that he was framing it.
Social media management. This one was very something that Stephen seemed particularly aggravated by in his video, although I don't understand why. It says DW will have the exclusive right to manage, curate, and monetize his official Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Snapchat, Rumble, and other social media accounts, excluding his existing personal Twitter and Instagram accounts. So why would we exclude some but not exclude others? Well, we're saying that during the term, we have, of course, he puts his podcast on Apple Podcast. We're the ones monetizing the Apple Podcast. So this is just making clear that, yes, we're selling ads in his podcast. The podcast goes out on Apple Podcasts. That revenue comes back to us. We put something up on Facebook. Same thing. We bring in ad revenue off of that Facebook piece of content. But we're going to own that during the term. Obviously, at the end of the term, he's going to get his official Facebook account back. He's going to get his official YouTube account back. He's going to get his official Apple Podcast channel back. But during the term, again, all those people behind us, we've got experts in every one of these platforms, how to optimize it, how to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. And we'll manage that and we'll collect the revenue. But not as Twitter and Instagram, because those are very personal channels. You can't manage someone's Twitter. I can't speak for Candace Owens. I can't speak for Ben Shapiro. It also says that we will have the perpetual and exclusive right to create, own, manage, curate, and monetize any and all social media accounts that we create based on Crowder's content or shows. What's that about? Well, Crowder already has enormous social channels. He got like 6 million YouTube followers or something. I mean, he's one of the biggest voices in the movement. But what happens if we create a documentary like What is a Woman? Well, sure, you've got Matt's Facebook and Matt's YouTube that are promoting What is a Woman. But we may also want to build a Twitter account, that is at What is a Woman, or a YouTube account that's just for clips from What is a Woman. Well, that wouldn't belong to Matt. That would belong to us because What is a Woman belongs to us. And that's what this was meant to say, that all of the stuff that Crowder brings over, that's his, Louder with Crowder and all, his Louder with Crowder accounts, all of that. Well, that's his. We're going to manage it for him during the term. We're going to monetize it during the term. At the end of the term, all of that's going to go back to him. He said that was not what it says in his video that he released, but you can read right here. That's exactly, he gets all of, it's only during the term that we control that. But the things that we make based on the content that we make, well, that belongs to us because the content belongs to us. And so those channels have to belong to us.
So Stephen ended up responding to this, and his response was pretty bad. He basically took a few recordings of Jeremy out of context to make him look bad, where he referred to people working for the Daily Wire as wage slaves, which I mean can sound bad, but realistically, he was using that term very loosely, just talking about how someone can get paid by him to come to the Daily Wire and get their content promoted, and also, you're not a wage slave if you're getting $50 million. Stephen, you're not a wage slave, buddy. Where's my 50 mil?
They don't get deals that... They can be wage slaves for a little bit, come over and make a salary and grow their brand. They can be wage slaves for a little bit. They can be wage slaves for a little bit.
And if you look at the comment section for people who respond to the out of context clips here, they're really not having it. People did not like this response from Stephen, even from his own fan base. Hey Crowder, release the whole taped conversation with Jeremy. We all know 5-second sound bites are usually taken out of context. It's not about the money, proceeds to reject the offer and ask for 3 times the money. Imagine this, you don't like the terms of negotiation that a company offers you, literally for any reason, so you decide to quietly refuse the offer and move on. Which is like obviously what Crowder should have done. This shouldn't have become a public drama if he didn't like the contract. And the contract was good, so he should have liked it anyway. And these are all comments, like I said, that are on Stephen's own YouTube channel at the fucking top of the video. So that's how you know things are bad. Bottom line is the Daily Wire made him a very generous offer. And for some reason, he decided to record phone calls with Jeremy, their co-CEO, to make them look bad and then pander to his audience about how they're actually evil or something like that. And Ben Shapiro also even publicly responded and seemed genuinely confused and hurt by what Crowder had said.
And Steve and I had always been very friendly. I know Jeremy was even friendlier with Stephen, had counseled him in very rough times. I had personally attempted to intervene when Stephen was demonetized in June 2019 on YouTube. I actually sounded off so loudly that the people at YouTube reached out to me, and Susan Wojcicki, the head of YouTube, got on the phone with me, and I reamed her out over demonetizing Stephen. And I hope it made a difference. Look, I think that Stephen is an incredibly talented comedian. I also think that what he is doing to my friend Jeremy Boring right now is one of the most disgusting things I have ever seen in politics. It really is one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. And supposedly, this line of attack came from that term sheet, right? The idea was that the term sheet was doing the work of big tech because the term sheet suggested that if he got demonetized from YouTube and we both lost money, that he would also lose money. What he apparently wanted us to do was continue to pay him extraordinary sums of money, even if the show was losing money, which is called a charity. It is not called a business.
What Crowder tried to do here was launch this Stop Big Con thing to have his own little empire and basically get one over on the Daily Wire. Didn't really work out, did it? And one of the top comments on this video where Ben had responded to Steven on the Daily Wire YouTube channel says, considering what happened with Crowder since this whole debacle, Daily Wire really dodged a bullet by not signing him. Well, what does this person mean by that? How did they dodge a bullet by not signing with him? What could that possibly mean? What has happened with Steven Crowder now since this controversy? In April of 2023, this video was released by Hillary Crowder, his wife, where she accused him of verbal abuse, and it's pretty hard to watch.
Because I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary of abusive and cruel. You were not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
There is no groceries. I do have
steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's an unreasonable request, but I'll go do it. How about you first? Hillary, how do you respect the man? Yes. How do you man? How do you man receive love and respect? No. How do you man No, you're not taking the car.
Steven,
you're not taking the car.
Steven,
you are not.
Then I will ask someone to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
It's not about Steven.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Steven, I can't.
Feeling some constraints?
Steven.
Like, I can't
Steven.
go. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
Do
you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be back when I'm back?
Steven.
And making it work. The only way out of this is discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
We are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect.
Steven.
Yeah. There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up, Steven.
Hillary,
Steven?
you give up so easily. I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Steven, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it. Watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit, okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you. And the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it, you go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No. But I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right. We're at an impasse. Become someone, listen to me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to engage anymore. I'm going to go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not going to.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you. I'm committed to it. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm gonna just
walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs take? No, you take Betty.
Whatever you want to call this, whether you want to call it, abuse or him being an asshole or whatever, the video doesn't paint him in a very good light. Doing a very homo inflection while berating his wife about how she can't use the car and needs to get to work while holding their child literally in her fucking stomach after 8 months of carrying it is pretty crazy. Watch it. Fucking watch it. No, it's not on my terms. It's on your terms. It's always on your terms. Why don't you put the gloves on and fucking wash the skibbity toilet? And so at the time, Candace Owens called him out, calling him a disgusting person and questioning how someone could speak to a woman like that.
So that is both heartbreaking and infuriating for me to watch. I cannot even comprehend how any man can speak to a woman like that, least of all when she is 8 months pregnant. And sadly, that isn't the worst part of that correspondence. What is the truth here? I don't know. Obviously, right now we have his wife's word versus Stephen's word. But given my personal experience with Stephen, I am very much inclined to believe his wife.
Now, to be honest, I can imagine a few good reasons to speak to a woman like that, because sometimes women are fucking retarded, just like guys can be. But speaking to your wife that way when she's 8 months pregnant and the kinds of demands he was making are pretty wild. And it's hard to defend Crowder in this video, especially given just like the setup of it. Like, he's just sitting back here, chilling, smoking a cigar, just like, relaxing, while she's like, just like being like, Stephen, you're being unreasonable. And he's like, I'm being unreasonable, you're being unreasonable. Like, he's not doing any work, he's just chilling out at their lake house, and she's clearly distressed, and he's not really giving her any leeway. It's a very bad video, it's a bad look. And the way he talks to her too is like, your voice isn't deep enough to talk like that, Stephen, okay? Now, this kind of stuff is bad for business, and it's very hard to defend. Simple as, Crowder is a guy who markets himself as a good family man, just a by-the-books guy who tells it how it is, wears his gun holsters on his show for some reason, I don't know why, and he treats people right. Except for those damn liberals. But here was a video of him being very cruel to someone he's supposed to care about. And as time passed and more stuff came out about the marriage, people continued to condemn him. Stephen later complained publicly that his wife was allowed to leave him based on the current laws around divorce, and called for, like, divorce law reform, basically. I've always believed children need a mom and a dad, and that divorce is horrible. And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad, and that divorce is horrible. But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. He complained, repeatedly attacking Texas laws allowing his wife to leave him without proving blame. Well, as it turns out, Ben Shapiro, Jeremy Boring, is it Boring or Bowring? Jeremy Boner, Candace Owens, Candace Dick fit in that ass, haha, y'all know what I'm talking about, and Hillary Crowder are not the only people who feel wronged by him. One person who's come out against him is Dave Landau, his former employee and co-host. Dave went on a podcast with Michael Malice, someone you guys have probably heard of from his appearances on Joe Rogan, and Dave criticized Crowder a lot on Michael's podcast and basically called him a hot-headed tard who could not keep his temper under control. At one point, Dave did not want to be on Louder with Crowder at the time, and Stephen allegedly flipped his shit, said he owned him, and a bunch of other crazy stuff you would only imagine hearing in a fucking cartoon.
So he just says, what's done is done.
Yeah, and I said, what does that mean? It's your show, which is ironic. That's what he said. And my phone rings, and, you know, I don't want to go greatly into the conversation between us, but it was, he's like, do you still want to be on Louder with Crowder? And I said, not at the moment. And, he starts going off on me, and now there's a ton of people in my apartment who can hear it.
Wait, like he's literally raising his voice?
He's screaming at me.
Okay, so literally raising his voice, not just being stern, like to the point where people, it's audible.
It's audible, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, it's started stern, but then it got into telling me that he owns me, and
in those words?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. He owns me, and once you say
it must have been on clearance. I mean, no one.
I was on sale, baby.
Neither of us can even reach the top shelf, let alone sit on it.
No. It's. I was in a basket with a bunch of balls. I was in a looted Walmart. Yeah. It was venomous, and I don't know what he was going through at that point, and I just was like, dude, it was all this projection coming at me.
And Dave is not the only person to come out with a story. Remember Not Gay Jared, okay, the guy I talked about at the beginning of the video, the dude who infiltrated Antifa for Crowder and went on Rogan to talk about it, someone who is pivotal to the show? Well, he came out with a 15-minute video recently on Twitter saying he was being legally abused and intimidated by Steven Crowder.
In late October of 2023, to my surprise, I was served these papers. A cease and desist from my former employer. It threatened severe legal action in the form of a lawsuit and demanded I cease communications with my friends. Like most cease and desist, it also demanded that I swiftly provide them written certificate of my compliance. These documents were filed with the county court of my former place of employment, demanding that I be subject to an oral deposition under oath for an unlimited amount of time, where they were free to interrogate me on pretty much any private matter that they chose. Also, in this petition for discovery, they demanded that I turn over documents of all communications with more than a dozen of my friends, an unlimited amount of unnamed persons in any form, and over an unlimited period of time. I did not. Now, I did not for a few reasons. Number one, I have seen how this employer handles legal issues, and I knew that once I opened the door to legal abuse, it would never, ever be shut. This is how they operate. In fact, I'm not the only one who's a current victim. My former employer is exploiting the legal system to abuse others right now, all in the darkness, fully knowing that the fear and risks it takes to speak up. I received the latest article of legal harassment on Friday, March 22nd, 2024. My ex-employer was finally awarded their request for my oral deposition and any document or communication with my friends that they believe may provide any avenue to sue me or others. As it stands, they await my forced cooperation. I will not. I will continue to fight. Now, here's the big question, is what was their entire reason for this harassment and the basis for their claims? I signed this separation agreement, an NDA, containing a strict and very broad non-disparagement clause many years ago. I voluntarily left my job after deciding I could no longer put myself or my growing family through the toxic and abusive work environment I had endured for years. This place was and is to this day a workplace rife with sexual misconduct, degeneracy, and aggression. What I had not anticipated is how much it would cost me to quit. This is where my first experience with legal abuse began. Starting from the day I delivered my notice of resignation, I was put on the phone with company lawyers, and the good cop, bad cop coercion campaign to get my signature on an NDA was well underway. I was told many lies throughout this process. I immediately hired my own legal counsel, and by the grace of God, understanding my predicament, he even agreed to work for half of his normal rate. Even so, the legal fees immediately began to pile up. My former employer and his attorney argued I could not work in media anywhere in the world, and most certainly not in the United States for 2 years. This is not because I had voluntarily signed some sort of non-compete in my original employment agreement. It was because they decided a non-solicitation clause that was in said original agreement would retroactively be interpreted as the broadest and strictest non-compete one could draft. But the negotiations with my former employer left no question that without a signed NDA, my guaranteed silence, I would undoubtedly be harassed well into the future. I was not paid a single dollar for its consideration, which brings me to what you might be asking next. What was the reason I did sign this? And again, as a man with his first child on the way, the small victory I got from it. The primary reason I signed the NDA was for a small carve-out in the non-compete clause, which allowed me to freely seek employment using some of my skill sets at another specific company. At least I could feed my family. That provision, however, was a lie. And upon starting my new job at the new said company, I was giving another one of these, a cease and desist, and was promptly unlawfully terminated from that position. While my supposed non-compete expired after 2 years, unfortunately, the most egregious part of my NDA, the part that silences my free speech, has no expiration. While NDAs are classically used to protect trade secrets, unfortunately in the entertainment industry, they are too often used to protect disgusting, unlawful activity and many forms of abuse. That's why, beyond the current burden I face from my ex-employer's legal abuse, I will be using these donations to fight back and file a counter motion, placing my unconstitutional NDA before a judge to have it dissolved in its entirety. I want my First Amendment rights back. I want to stop the cycle of abuse, and I want truth to be known. Victims of the cruel and powerful deserve a voice. Truth is the sword that slays the monsters, so let there be truth. Free speech matters.
Now, Jared did not reveal any specific legal documents in regards to this, but he was trying to raise money to defend himself against the legal onslaught that Crowder was apparently throwing his way. He did manage to raise almost $100,000 as of me recording this video, which is a pretty hefty sum of money. But as for him proving all of this happening, that's still kind of up in the air. He didn't provide any receipts, and that's obviously something to criticize him for, and that's why people like The Quartering and Tim Pool have given him shit, being like, you need to provide evidence for this kind of thing. I think a lot of people just kind of assume that Jared is telling the truth based on the kind of person that Steven's shown to be, but But Crowder did actually respond, kind of. He had this other guy from his show respond to that, and he clipped it on his YouTube where he didn't really say much. The basic outline here is that Steven's ex-wife is unjustifiably launching a smear campaign against him.
After 6 years of no communication, Jared gets roped into Hillary's plan, gets involved in this plan. February 17th of 2023, and just leave that overlay up for me, Hillary and Jared met in Atlanta to discuss their strategy, and they took this picture. How He Changed My Mind. I guess a proposed book that Hillary would like to write to apply more pressure to Stephen. February 20th, per Jared's text messages, any scenario where Hillary and I team up is the end of him, meaning Stephen. It is his worst nightmare. Watch the real fear enter his eye when Tim asks the question. All been going on behind the scenes. Can you believe the actions of people that are out in public saying they're trying to do the right thing, and yet behind the scenes scheming to pressure Stephen with a negative PR campaign?
I mean, to an extent, the scheming can be called into question, but if both of these people have been wronged by Crowder, it kind of makes sense that they would work together to figure out what to do in this situation. The rest of the response does not really have anything of substance, and frankly is pretty boring. And once again, the comment section is all people calling Stephen a piece of shit. You know, it's pretty crazy to watch this go down, just considering how big Steven's channel is, how big he's been on YouTube, the amount of shows he's been on and connections he's made. I mean, he basically made it to the top of conservative media within, 7-8 years back in the day, and now he's basically at the bottom and nobody respects him. He has no connections. He's definitely not getting on Joe Rogan anytime soon, and I don't know if he can really rebuild the reputation that he's lost. And back in the day, for all those beefs he had with people like Carlos Maza, you can imagine Carlos is rubbing his hands together right now because he's elated that the guy who previously was like calling him queer and gay and making fun of him for, whatever, is now getting destroyed, right? And Carlos is not destroyed. I mean, not that he had as much as Crowder to begin with, but you can imagine the sort of glee he's experiencing right now, and probably the glee that to an extent people from the Daily Wire are experiencing. Although, in fairness, it seems to me like they didn't really want to be in a beef with him. They never wanted to. Even in their responses to Steven, they were pretty nice. They were pretty tame. Like what Jeremy did was pretty tame with that video, and when he responded, he even complimented Steven during it and chalked it up to a misunderstanding with the way that Steven interpreted the contract, which in my opinion, it was not a misunderstanding. Steven was just being a fucking snake. Okay, he was being a snake. In some ways, it's pretty sad to see Steven's empire, in some ways, it's sad to see Steven's empire come crumbling down, because the guy was undoubtedly one of the most prominent news show hosts, entertainment people, conservative guys, whatever you want to call him on YouTube. I think this is the point where I'm supposed to be like, well, it's good that he's falling because he's a conservative, or I'm supposed to be like, he should be around still because he's a conservative, and it's like, I don't really care. Sorry. But whatever you want to call him, he built a pretty massive, impressive channel and brand from the ground up. But at the same time, considering how many people he's apparently treated like over the years, it's not surprising that all of this is happening. And the Daily Wire definitely dodged a bullet on accident by not managing to sign him, because if all this went down a few years, down the line, when they were into this contract and he was doing a show at the Daily Wire, they would have a big mess on their hands. At this point, I honestly don't think that Crowder is going to be able to come back from this, and you know what? Maybe he shouldn't.